Hey, hi everybody. So let's get started today. Just a quick check. Audio is clear to you guys and video is clear to you. Just let me know in the chat if audio video you're getting clear. And so just a moment. Let me just write something in a file here as well and let me know if that is also visible to you guys. So whether the text size is fine or not, I would write a few things to show you as well. And you know, iPad of course is working for me. So yeah, cool. All good. Awesome, awesome. So let's get started. Right. Uh, so we will be talking about Node.js interviews, right? And again, some of you might have attended the last session where I was talking about Android interview questions, right? And I divided again the category, like I said that in the beginning, that we would talk about SD. So if we look at the landscape of how hiring works, so you generally have a SD1 level kind of role, which is uh, you know different companies, like I think Google calls it L3, and then Facebook has say probably E3, and then some companies call it SD1, some companies call it associate developer or just engineer, something like that, which is basically 0 to 3 years experience kind of people, right? And then there is the SD2 level kind of people, which is essentially your 2 to say 5 years experience kind of people, right? There is obviously a little bit of overlap because not everybody goes from SD1 to 2 at the same kind of level, depends on their growth as well. And then there is SD3 types of level, which is kind of 4 to 8 years experienced people, that place. Beyond that, there are gonna be lead engineers, architects, technical leads. There are positions above that, but mainly for interviews, I'm focusing on these kind of roles, especially SD1 and 2, which I myself have again interviewed for these kind of positions. I haven't interviewed people for Node.js positions above that kind of an experience level. I myself am not, मेरे को भी 5 years completely where I have left college, right? So the thing is that at an SD1 level, what are people expecting? At SD2 level, what are people expecting? SD3 level, what are people expecting? So the rough idea about that is that we are talking about companies where we are having not just specific interviews, not companies like very big companies. They have generic interviews, they have software developer interviews. So they will ask you about data structures, algorithms. They will ask you very little about projects. If you have done before dev projects, they will ask very little about them if you have done them. And they will ask you a little about core computer science theory like operating systems, GBMS, stuff like that. They will ask you a little bit about that, but mostly it will be data structures, algorithms, because they're hiring for a general SD role, and they can shuffle you around front end, back end, different kinds of roles they can give you depending on wherever there is shortage or something like that. But let's say funded product companies are there, say Zomato, Swiggy, Flipkart, Urban Clap, Ola, Uber, these kind of companies. Not Uber, I think, but these companies, they would be hiring based on little bit of data skill algorithms and rest of it domain specific skills. So if they have a backend they are working on, if their backend is in Node.js, then they're looking for a Node.js engineer in particular. So they would be asking about JavaScript questions and Node.js questions again, right? And not so heavily funded, like smaller scale companies, which you can say market capitalization wise, people who have taken maybe 1 or 2 rounds of funding, and they are 100 million, 200 million size companies. Okay, a lot of edtech companies there are. So there is say a company of say size, Doubtnut is a company, they have their backend in Node.js. I was hiring for them recently. Okay, any 3 to 4 year old startups. There again, even more focus is going to be there on their backend because they want you to join and immediately start working on stuff, right? Um, at an SD1 level, JS language, idea about the JS language should be very well, right? That is something people would be expecting from you. More than anything else, people would be expecting this at the most, right? That your concept about event loops, object creation, the this keyword, all of that stuff is going to be very good. So that's what an SDE1 level people are looking at. So async programming, then object-oriented programming in JavaScript, all that stuff. At an SDE2 level kind of thing, people are expecting more of a production grade things you have already deployed. So more of network related stuff comes. So load balancing you should have an idea of. Then security you should have an idea of. HTTP codes and all. Well, you should have a standard idea of what all HTTP error codes are there. The HTTP network methods are there, these kind of things. Database you should have a good idea of. ORMs you should have worked with. These kind of things come into the picture in that case, right? And existing projects obviously. So designs. So you should be able to do a high level and then a low level design of a given project idea that people have given you. As you go to SD3 kind of level, then there is even more focus on probably if you have made some open source projects, any plugins or libraries that you have written for some existing open source frameworks, that is something people might be looking at. Or design system and all knowledge is going to be even more important. Network idea is going to be even more important. Then there are big systems like at companies which are scaling in the size of millions. People will be asking like how to make an application load balancer, how to make an edge load balancer, how to upgrade from HTTP 1 to 2 so that you can send data in chunks. These kind of stuff will start becoming more important than the language and understanding of Node.js itself, because that people are assuming this is something that would already be knowing. So that's kind of how we can start breaking down things at that point. Okay, I'll quickly take a look at the messages on the chat, and then I will start delving into what kind of topics people are asking questions about, language specific ones and then the system specific ones. Okay, so so somebody asking about MERN versus Java. There's a question. There is Node.js good for distributed architecture or Golang? That is a question. So okay, awesome. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about MERN. So you guys know what's the full form of MERN, right? What is MERN? And let's talk about that, right? So MERN stands for basically the components of creating a website, which is you are using for database, you are using MongoDB. For the server, backend server framework, you are using Express.js. Front-end framework, you are using React. And all of that is built using Node.js. Okay. So that is basically your what the full form of MERN means. Now, to be very honest, let's talk about how a stack looks like. This is not generally how a stack looks like. MERN, and then before MERN there used to be mean stack, where the A used to stand for Angular. This is a short form that is overhyped. People keep spreading it too much without understanding what they mean. It's like just talking MERN all day is bullshit. Okay, so MERN is not the point. For the very biggest thing about MERN is that MERN starts with M, which is MongoDB. In reality today, more people are using Postgres as a database instead of MongoDB, which is the actual reality. Okay, more projects are built on Postgres than on MongoDB. But then again, it's not, Postgres is not better than Mongo. It's about what is your use case. Your use case demands a SQL kind of database and good relations and all. So you would be using Postgres. If it demands like big data dumping, relations are not important, indexing is not important, you would be using MongoDB. It's again use case specific. So it could be P or M, right? The Express part Bigger projects sometimes these days are using a few different frameworks, like Nest.js is there if they're using TypeScript, but Express is obviously what 95% of all Node.js project use. So writing E and N separately does not make any sense. Node.js backend generally means 95% of the cases it means Express only, it does not mean anything else. Okay. uh, then about the React part. So React, again, I think 60% 70% of the market is with React. It's a very popular one. At least 50% definitely is with React. Rest of the market lies with Angular and Vue. Angular kind of was the popular front end framework earlier. It's slowly getting out of usage, but for example at Google internally a lot of projects use Angular. Right. So Pratik Bhaiya has joined Google recently. वो जिस team पे काम करते हैं तो वो Angular पे काम करते हैं. Right. And there are a lot of companies which are also still using Angular, but newer companies, smaller startups, they are, if they are not using React, then they're probably using Vue. So React, Angular, Vue, all three of them are pretty big. React definitely being the biggest. Okay. So it's about, what is the stack. So when we talk about full stack, so you have a DB where you store your data, right? And your DB interacts with your server, okay, and then your server interacts with your front end, right? So your DB, obviously you have to choose either between Postgres, MySQL, or MongoDB. Other DBs are also there. These three are the top most popular ones. Among that, these are SQL DB. This is a NoSQL DB. For SQL, generally people in production they use Postgres, and for NoSQL people are using MongoDB. Okay, very use case specific. Again, I have made a lot of videos on SQL versus NoSQL, so I can actually show that moment. It's in Hindi, by the way, but I'll just show that. So there is this video on Coding Blocks YouTube channel itself, like whether to use MySQL or MongoDB, what kind of database to choose. You can go and take a watch of this, or you can watch any other video also which touches upon the same topic, is whether to use a SQL database or a NoSQL database. And at an interview level, it's gonna matter that you have an idea of both, and people would be asking whether they might give you a question like, ye XYZ cheese banani hai, and then to make that, do you want to use a SQL DB, or would you use a NoSQL DB? They will ask you that question. They will say, okay, I want to make a blogging app, so the database in which my blogs and the user details and the comments would be stored, do you want to make it MongoDB, do you want to make it SQL? And you have to answer that, and then they will ask like, why are you using this database, why not the other database, what's the pros and cons? You have to give a convincing answer for that. So understanding of both database systems are important. So don't run like dimag shut down karke man, everybody is saying it's a nice acronym, it sounds very nice to pronounce it, man, we will keep on saying. That's bullshit. That's not how the industry works. That's not how things are developed. Okay, it's entire world is not getting built on man. React is used in a lot of places. Mongo is also used in a lot of places. Express is also used independently. They are used in a lot of places. But does not mean everybody creating a web app is using MERN without understanding what MERN even means. Okay, so don't hype it needlessly like that. The college students, all of you guys do that. That's if you go and search for MERN, actually in job sites you'll find very little jobs say MERN developer. Nobody's looking for MERN developer. I have never made a job posting called MERN developer. Why will I make that? I don't need a MERN developer. I might need a Node.js person. I might need a React person. Why would I need a MERN person, right? So that's the reality. Okay, so understanding of both types of databases is actually very important, SQL as well as NoSQL, and where to apply which one, that's important. So it's not just M, it's both M and P, right? So that's about the database part. Now coming to the server part. Okay, so the server part is basically your backend, what it is made on, right? So that like I said, for 95% of the cases it is made using Express. Okay, these days though, a lot of people are using TypeScript for both backend as well as front end work in the JavaScript world, as I'm talking about. So because in JavaScript, if you look at Google Trends, you'll see TypeScript is rising a lot, right? Let's say, in fact, take a look at that, right? So as we keep talking about things like that, So let's say trends.google.com. Okay, so let's take JavaScript and let's take TypeScript. And let's say talk about last 5 years. Okay, as you see, it's not comparable at all in that sense, or from 2004 to present, if you see, right? But sorry, let's 5 years itself, if you see, right? So this is, for example, in US, if you want to like look at worldwide trends as well, so you will see that. So it's nowhere comparable, but as you can see, TypeScript is growing. Like in terms of volume, it was like 4% volume at that point. Here it's like quite like double the volume like that in the last 5 years. So TypeScript is growing. JavaScript itself, in comparison to that, is kind of reducing a little bit. This is because I think people probably don't specifically search JavaScript anymore. They search for something like say Node.js, right? So in that sense, you will see just like Node.js, and if I remove, for example, JavaScript from the picture for a moment here. So between Node.js and TypeScript, as you can see, more people are searching for TypeScript than Node.js now. Earlier, Node.js was a more popular term to search. So TypeScript is definitely growing in popularity because it gives you object-oriented way of writing the code. It gives you class-based syntax. It gives you type safety. It gives you compile time safety as well. So there is a compilation stage and then there is a runtime stage, right? So I guess I need to have a haircut. It looks pretty bad in front of a white background, right? So yeah. Okay. um, so if you're using TypeScript though, then there is another the backend framework that people use is Nest.js. Okay. So this is if people are using TypeScript. If plain JavaScript you're using, then it is this. So that's what people are using, building servers based on. Okay. Then talking of front end, I think front end has got React, it has got Vue.js, and it has got Angular. There are a few other frameworks as well, and then people create websites using without frameworks as well. Now the idea is people don't want to test your skills on any of the particular frameworks on front end usually. Take my word for it, when I'm looking for developers, even if I'm looking for React developers, I would be asking them basic JavaScript questions a lot. They have made a few projects on React, which is a good thing. Then if I want them to work on React, they'll be able to start it quickly. But for a React developer position, will I hire somebody who knows Vue.js but does not know React? Definitely I will, if their fundamentals of JavaScript are strong. Other way around also true. If I have a Vue.js project and I hiring somebody whose JavaScript fundamentals are strong but they have not used Vue, they have used React, I will hire them, no issues at all, right? Front end frameworks, picking another one is never a problem for anybody. JavaScript fundamentals being strong is more important. Again, that's why I don't run after the MERN bandwagon. R is not important, J is important, right? So people, there's no J in that acronym, but the JavaScript part is more important. The React part is not very important. When you go and work, obviously it will be React would be needed, but then even if you don't know React but your JavaScript is strong, you'll be able to pick up React on the job in maybe 1 week or 2 weeks max. Okay. um, so here as well, like both React and Vue.js and Angular as well. So not just so in fact, Angular is used in TypeScript only, right? Vue and React can be used in both JavaScript and TypeScript. These days, a lot of people are using it in TypeScript. In fact, Vue.js, the entire framework has been rewritten by the authors in TypeScript. Vue.js, the version 3 is written in TypeScript. So TypeScript is getting popular in that domain as well. TypeScript at an interview level questions would still probably not be there a lot, unless the company uses TypeScript completely in their backend and their front end, and they really want a little bit of TypeScript knowledge from you, and their job description says TypeScript, then they might ask you, but it's going to happen. People are going to be focusing more on JavaScript basics, right? Not on TypeScript a lot. Cool. So that's the landscape. That's how people are hiring. That's what are the technologies that are getting used. I hope that gives you a good idea. If there are any questions in this, feel free to ask them. I would like to take those questions up, and then we will move on to JavaScript. What questions are asked in JavaScript, how the questions are asked, what can you read about that. Okay. So there's a question by Shiva which says that, hello Arnav Bhaiya, at what age did you start coding, and if I start today, how long will it take for me to reach at your level? So I will give you a disappointing answer, Shiva. You will never be able to reach my level because you are not starting from my level. So there is no level like that. You have to figure out what you want to be, what's the goal, and you have to figure out where you are starting from. Right, so my level does not have any meaning. What is my level? Like I have a like, it's not very linear in nature. I know certain amount of Android, I know certain amount of Node.js, I know a little bit of some Python, some PHP. So say in Python or PHP, my knowledge, that level, probably many of you watching the chat, you are beyond my level, right? If you are talking about, say, competitive programming, most of you people might be beyond my level. I don't do competitive programming at all. Data structures, algorithms, I know some good basic idea of, hash maps, linked list, event trees, graphs. I can work with those things, but competitive programming, I have no idea. So people might be beyond my level. Maybe in Android, not a lot of people know as much I do, people who are watching this video. But then, maybe I am not interested in Android next 3-4 years. I get interested in something else. You can get ahead of my level. So there's no such thing as level. And time spent working on software definitely helps people. I'll be honest about that. So at a very personal level, talking to students, I have said this often. These days on YouTube and all, somebody comes up and says 6 months के अंदर हम ये बन जाएंगे, 2 हफ्ते के अंदर हमारी जॉब लग जाएगी. I very publicly do not really take up such things a lot, but to be honest, yes, somebody who has spent 5 years working on software, you can't reach their level in 6 months. It's not possible. So it takes time to do that. As far as interviews are considered, getting a job, getting out of college is considered. That's not the point here. I mean, मेरे को तो industry में भी हो गया 4-5 साल, and before that, during college time, I also used to work on things. So software development के बारे में मेरे को जो knowledge है right now, would you be able to get that by watching YouTube videos for 6 months? No, it will not happen like that. You will actually have to build software. You have to ship software. You need your software out there with millions of people, and then it will crash on millions of people, and then you'll find out, oh, why did it crash? What is the scalability problem? What is the security problem? So that is how it can be learned, right? But then that's a different topic for a different day. But just making that part clear, for getting a job, for interviews, you have to pick up some language, some framework, some technology that you like. For example, on backend, Node.js ke alawa, there are options. There is Django you can use, Ruby on Rails you can use, Java, J2EE you can use. But find out what you like, what you feel good working on, because some people who are very comfortable working with Node.js, if you tell them to work on a Java backend, they would not find it interesting to work on that, because they don't like the way the syntax is, they don't like the way the architecture is there. So find out a framework that you like, find out how to build things, and spend some time working on that. Understand the fundamentals very well, understand the language very well, understand how the network operations work, and then go for interviews and get a job. So that's the goal that you should have in mind, and that's what I'm gonna be talking to you guys about. Okay. So sir, what if programming is good, technical linking on HTML to JS? Okay. So JS interviews, let's talk about that. People are starting to ask about that as well. So Golang and TypeScript, I'm gonna come to that. Okay. So JavaScript को डेप्थ में समझने के लिए क्या चाहिए, उसके लिए there are lot of things, but I would give you one place to start with, and a very good place to start with, and then I will show you some example questions as well. तो यार मतलब जो मैं JavaScript के लिए बाइबल की तरह ट्रीट करता हूँ, which is You Don't Know JavaScript. It's a very nice book edition, series created by Getify. Okay. So इसका जो फर्स्ट एडिशन है वो फ्री में अवेलेबल है. यहाँ पे यू कैन क्लिक फॉर द फर्स्ट एडिशन फ्री बुक्स एंड यू विल फाइंड ऑल द बुक्स फर्स्ट एडिशन. Second edition, he has only written the first and second parts of it. Rest of the parts he's writing, which is fine. थोड़ा पुराना है फर्स्ट एडिशन, सो एकदम जावास्क्रिप्ट के क्या कहते हैं 2020 era of JavaScript stuff will not be there, but आपके इंटरव्यू के क्वेश्चंस जो है ना वो क्लियर करने के लिए द फर्स्ट एडिशन इज परफेक्टली फाइन. सो ये जो बुक्स हैं, यू कैन ऑल ऑफ देम कैन बी ओपनड अप. Okay. सो जो अप एंड गोइंग है, दिस बुक इज लाइक बेसिक्स ऑफ जावास्क्रिप्ट इसमें कवर्ड है, राइट, नॉट लाइक यू कैन जस्ट स्टार्ट रीडिंग, तो आपका इस बुक के तरफ इंट्रोडक्शन अच्छा हो जाएगा. स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम द सेकेंड बुक इज वेयर द गुड स्टफ स्टार्ट्स. स्कोप्स क्या होते हैं, होस्टिंग क्या होता है, डायनामिक स्कोप क्या होता है, very important stuff. So lexical scope is something that's very important. I will talk about that a little bit. Right. So let me just write those down for my reference as well, and I will talk to you what kind of questions get asked about that. Okay. So lexical scope is something people do ask a lot. Function versus block scopes is something that people ask a lot in interviews, right. In JavaScript interviews क्या क्या चीज़ें पूछी जाती है, होस्टिंग क्या होता है उसके बारे में भी लोग पूछते हैं, ठीक है. एंड देन क्लोजर्स क्या होते हैं उसके बारे में भी लोग पूछते हैं, ठीक है. सो दीज ऑल स्टफ आर देयर. एंड देन देर इज द नेक्स्ट बुक इज द दिस एंड ऑब्जेक्ट प्रोटोटाइप. सो दिस जो है जावास्क्रिप्ट में वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक, एंड पीपल आर गोना बी आस्किंग अबाउट दिस अ लॉट. ओके. सो what is this, तो उसके ऊपर इनफैक्ट देर आर 2 chapters on this, and then there are the ऑब्जेक्ट्स कैसे काम करते हैं, प्रोटोटाइप्स कैसे काम करते हैं, क्लासेस कैसे काम करते हैं इन जावास्क्रिप्ट. सो दैट्स अनदर टॉपिक. ES6 classes, how that works. So that's the another topic that on which people ask a lot of questions. Okay. Then there is the third book which is on types and grammar. So this again data types plus coercion कैसे काम करता है, plus equality कैसे काम करता है, okay, and native types वगैरह क्या होते हैं. So there is a book on data types as well. Again, a very good part to understand. We'll look at some questions that comes out of this part. Okay. And then there is async and await वाला चीज़. So again, this is how the event loop works, how callbacks work, how promises work, how async await works. Okay. Generators are something at a SD1 level might not come, SD2 level might come, SD3 level definitely can come if people are talking about those things कि generator functions कैसे काम करते हैं. Not a very thing that every day people are using a lot. Okay. And then performance वगैरह के ऊपर थोड़े से topics हैं, right. So most of these books, I think if you take these books, so chapter 1 to 3 level के जो चीज़ें हैं हर एक बुक में से, those would be good enough for SD1 level interviews. For SD2 and 3 level you should probably read the entire books, each of these books that are there. Okay. And then there is the last book which is ES6 and beyond wala. Don't focus too much on this, because this is the book that has gotten old, because this is 6 years back somebody was telling future ऐसा होगा, राइट. तो फ्यूचर बिल्कुल ऐसा नहीं निकला है, कुछ चीज़ें ऐसी हुई है, कुछ चीज़ें डिफरेंट वे में हुई है. तो द सेकेंड एडिशन वेन एवर इट विल कम आउट, इट विल बी एक्चुअली बेटर थिंग इंस्टेड, राइट. सो दिस वन यू कैन लेट इट बी द 6th बुक, यू कैन जस्ट चेक इट. तो हम इन चीज़ों के बारे में बात करेंगे कि लेक्सिकल स्कोप्स क्या है, फंक्शन ब्लॉक स्कोप्स क्या है, होस्टिंग क्या है, क्लोजर्स, दिस, ऑब्जेक्ट, प्रोटोटाइप, क्लास, all that stuff we are going to discuss about. Okay. Before that, so let's go and discuss these things. ठीक है. Or any questions before that coming from anybody, so I can take those up. Before starting that, yeah, a lot of people are asking about the job market of JavaScript versus Java, people are asking, and versus Golang people are asking. So a lot of these things people are asking. So let me give you my perspective. It might not be completely true, but जितने भी companies है, so let's say type of companies हैं जिनकी हम बात करें, जहाँ पे जो टेक टीम है वो कुछ 5,000 से ज़्यादा एम्प्लॉयज़ की है टेक टीम, बहुत बड़ी ऐसी कंपनी, ठीक है. यूज़र्स जो हैं वो लेट से 10 मिलियन या 100 मिलियन प्लस काइंड ऑफ यूज़र्स हैं, ठीक है. बी टाइप ऑफ कंपनी की बात करते हैं, वेर द टीम इज़ 500 प्लस की टीम है, और यूज़र्स जो हैं उस कंपनी के पास 5 मिलियन प्लस यूज़र्स हैं। एंड सी टाइप कंपनी की बात करते हैं, जहाँ पे जो टीम है वो से 20 से ज़्यादा इंजीनियर्स हैं, और जिनके पास यूज़र्स जो हैं वो 1 लाख यूज़र से ज़्यादा यूज़र्स हैं उनके पास, ठीक है। तो इससे छोटी सी ऐसी कंपनीज में आप लोग बेवकूफ़ हो सबके सब, जो ये मतलब एंटायर स्टूडेंट कम्युनिटी काफ़ी बेवकूफ़ है आई वुड से, जो ये डी टाइप की कंपनीज उसमें काम नहीं करती है ऐसे लोग, ठीक है। जो दैट इज़ अ बैटल आई हैव स्टॉप्ड फाइटिंग, मैं समझाना छोड़ दिया लोगों को कि इससे भी छोटे साइज से कंपनीज में इफ़ यू गो, आगे करियर में ग्रोथ काफ़ी ज़्यादा होगी। अगर आप कंपेरेबल सैलरी मिल रही है आपको किसी कंपनी में जहाँ ना 10 लोगों की टीम है, और जहाँ टोटल यूजर्स 10,000 टाइप के हैं, और वो कंपनी ग्रो कर रही है, अभी फंडिंग अभी अभी आई है, और दो कंपनीज आर ग्रोइंग, सो ऐसे टाइप की कंपनी में जाओगे आपकी मैक्सिमम ग्रोथ है। बट दैट्स अ डिस्कशन फॉर अ डिफरेंट डे, एंड इट्स अ फ्यूटाइल डिस्कशन आई थिंक इंडिया में ना। लाइक पीपल टॉक अबाउट बुलशिट लाइक जॉब सेफ्टी है, नौकरी चली जाएगी तो क्या होगा। मतलब ए टाइप के जो कंपनीज है ना उसमें भी जो नौकरी गई है कोविड के बीच में, बट लोगों को सुनना नहीं होता है। तो लेट्स चेक दैट, लेट्स नॉट हैव दिस डिस्कशन, बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल आर लाइक ए बी सी, इस टाइप के कंपनीज में ही पीपल आर लुकिंग एट जॉब्स एज फार एज आई हैव सीन इन इंडिया। पीपल डोंट टॉक अबाउट एनी कंपनी स्मॉलर देन दैट। तो अब इसकी अगर हम बात करें तो जो ए टाइप के कंपनीज है ना, तो यहाँ पे मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स द लैंग्वेजेस दैट आर यूज्ड इन सिग्निफिकेंट बैक एंड वर्क would be using Java or C Sharp, and even C++ would be getting used. Heavy duty languages are getting used. They have very big systems on which they are working on. ऐसा नहीं है कि in these kind of companies languages like रस्ट भी यूज होता है, एंड गोलैंग भी थोड़ा बहुत यूज होता है इन दिस काइंड ऑफ प्लेसेस। सो इट्स नॉट लाइक इन दीज काइंड ऑफ कंपनीज अदर लैंग्वेजेस आर नॉट यूज्ड, but they are trying to move to languages of these type mostly. That's the classic case at very big companies. So Java is kind of very standard, like most of the very big companies, Java is a very standard language that is used on the backends. So it will be using something like Spring framework or Play framework. These days there is a Micronaut framework, and जो Java वाले हैं कंपनीज वो धीरे धीरे Kotlin में भी मूव हो रहे हैं, बैकएंड में भी आजकल. So that's the landscape of the companies of the A type companies. Okay. देन टॉकिंग अबाउट बी टाइप कंपनीज। ओके, सो बी टाइप कंपनीज में क्या यूज हो रहा होगा, जो थोड़ा कंपनीज बड़े हो गए। सो दीज काइंड ऑफ कंपनीज, सो लेट्स टॉक अबाउट सी टाइप कंपनीज फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, राइट। तो ये जो सी टाइप के कंपनीज होंगे ना, यहाँ पे जो है वो नोड जेस यूज हो रहा होगा। मोस्ट ऑफ दिस कंपनीज टुडे आई थिंक ग्रेटर देन 50% में नोड जेस यूज होता है, बट कई कंपनीज इस रेंज में जैंगो भी यूज कर रहे होते हैं, कई रेल्स भी यूज कर रहे होते हैं, PHP भी यूज करते होते हैं कुछ कंपनीज। जो कंपनी PHP में सी टाइप की कंपनीज है वहाँ मत जाओ, आप ज्वाइन मत करो, आई वुड से जिंदगी काफ़ी बेकार हो जाएगी आपकी, बिकॉज PHP है ना, मतलब ऐसा ना कोई लैंग्वेज खराब और अच्छा नहीं होता है वैसे तो, इन माई ओपिनियन नो लैंग्वेज इज गुड और बैड, बट PHP हैज़ बीन बीटन अराउंड द बुश enough number of times, and there I think it's just not so much fun to work on PHP these days anymore, and in general the entire software industry thinks PHP not to be a good language. So it rarely happens. Like nobody would say about any of these other languages ki any it's bigger, better or worse or anything like that, but PHP somewhere has fallen into that bucket where nobody is really excited about PHP anymore. And the last hope was probably Facebook, but Facebook has moved to language like D, and they also use HHVM. They don't use PHP like the rest of the world uses PHP anymore. So PHP kind of can be chucked off from the list, but these companies, the C type companies, they would be using some of these. तो अब जो बी टाइप ऑफ कंपनीज होंगे ये थोड़े टाइम पहले ही सी टाइप के रहे होंगे, राइट। सो दे वुड बी यूजिंग राइट नाउ वन ऑफ दीज फ्रेमवर्क्स लाइक नोड, जैंगो, रेल्स, समथिंग लाइक दैट। अरे इनफैक्ट जोमेटो में आई यूज टू वर्क, एंड जोमेटो जो है वो बी टाइप की कंपनी के अंदर आता है, राइट। दे हैव वेरी रिसेंटली मूव फ्रॉम अ सी टाइप ऑफ कंपनी टू अ बी टाइप ऑफ कंपनी इन द लास्ट 3-4 years, राइट। तो there a lot of code is written in PHP actually. New code they are writing it in Go. So in these kind of companies they would be moving to either Node plus TypeScript kind of setups. अगर वो Node plus JavaScript में they might be moving to that. They might be moving to Go अगर they have problems in scaling and concurrency, they might be moving to Go, right? Or they might be moving to Java. So that's what C kind of companies are in the state where you would find that a lot of code is written in Node or Django or Rails or in PHP, and they are moving to TypeScript with Node, or they're going to Go or to Java. Okay, so that's the landscape, right? So Node.js covers your most of the C type of companies and a lot of B type of companies as well, where Node.js is getting used. But apart from that, I think, yeah, if you look at A kind of companies, there the backend it's gonna be in Java or in Go. Most lot of these B kind of companies, they are moving to Golang as well. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what languages and frameworks are getting used in which size of companies. Is that okay? Okay. So let's talk about the JavaScript interview questions. Upar I had written these kind of stuff. So function and block scopes obviously kind of important basic knowledge एकदम test करने के लिए people might ask stuff like this कि let a equal to 10 console.log a. Okay, then create a function task, and then I write let a equal to 20 console.log 20, and then if true I make brace, so let a equal to 30, right, console.log a. Text is visible to you. Sorry, yeah, text is visible to you guys, right? So then here I do console.log a again, and I call task, and then I do console.log a again. Okay, sorry, a, yeah, cool. So this is the code that I've given. थोड़ा सा आपको हेल्प सिंटैक्स हाईलाइटिंग से मिल जा रहा होगा यहाँ पे, बट पीपल माइट आस्क यू टू नोटपैड काइंड ऑफ अ प्लेस वेयर द सिंटैक्स हाईलाइटिंग इज नॉट अवेलेबल. But here what will get printed on the screen? What do you guys think? So this is one line, second line, third line, fourth line, fifth line. तो ये 5 चीज़ों में what stuff will get printed on the screen? Can you guys tell me? Okay. What will be these 5 outputs? All 5. Write down in the chat. एक एक करके मत लिखो, जैसे कोई एक 20 लिख रहा है, कोई 10 लिख रहा है. Not like that. Tell me what would be all these 5 outputs. People are writing 3 outputs, only 2 outputs. Guys, there will be 5 outputs. Line number 3, then line number 7, line number 10, line number 12, and line number 17. So what will be the 5 outputs? So 10, 20, 30, 20, 10 is what a lot of people are writing. Some people are writing 10, 20, 30, 20, 10. Most people are writing that, and that's correct. So if you run this, you get 10, 20, 30, 20, 10, right? So this is what people are getting. Now, if I take all the lets and change them with var, okay? So this is what very commonly gets asked. If I change all the let to var, okay, so then what would be the output? So this is where people discuss about block scope versus function scope differences. People ask here, right? Can somebody tell me what will happen if you change it to var? So people are starting to write that. Some people are still writing 10, 20, 30, 20, 10 after changing to var, which is not correct. If you change it to var, there would be a little bit of difference. Some people are writing same. So the same part is, that's the part where, you go wrong, which is now it becomes 10, 20, 30, 30, 10. Okay. Why it becomes? Because var does not have function scopes. It has got block scopes. Okay. Sorry, the other way around. My bad. Let has block level scopes. Var has got function level scopes. It does not have block level scopes. So that means that when I write this here, it is the same variable. The a, this a and this a are the same. Writing var here does not create a new scope and a new variable here. So when I go and print this one, it is printing the value of a which has changed. So writing var a30 here and writing a30 here are the same thing. We good? Are you able to understand? There's not gonna be any error like cannot define or something like that. That also some people were saying, but that's not gonna happen in that case. Okay. Const, by the way, you can't change the value of const, but const is block scope just like let. Modern JavaScript, we don't use var anymore. Okay, we use let and we use const. We don't use var anymore because there is no advantage that var gives. Var has some ambiguous things, like writing var and not writing var gives you the same result, and it does not have block level scope, so people don't use var anymore. It's underlined everywhere, and it is saying no, you var use instead of let or const. So these days modern IDs will also push you to using let or const instead of that. Got it. So that's about scopes. Very basic question. This is like probably the easiest question, but if I ask this and somebody is not able to do that, I know that they have not actually gone deep into JavaScript at all. They write a lot of code, they're making websites, but they don't know what they're doing. That is the situation that I would be thinking if somebody does not get this question right. Okay, so that was about, say, scopes. Okay, cool. Then comes another question. So I write function, and I write this, so I made two functions. Good morning name and good evening name it takes, and it prints this thing. And I write here that good morning I call with say Arnav, and say I call good evening I call with, say, Karthik Bhaiya's name. Okay, so this if I run, okay. Um, So it says good morning Arnav and good evening Karthik. It says here, not sure if you can read that part at the bottom left, right? Now the question that comes is that if I move these function lines here, will it work? Okay, again, common interview question, very common interview question is that if I move good morning and good evening up there, will it work or will it not work? What do you think, guys? Will it work or will it not work after I move the good morning and good evening call to the top? So everybody says will work, and most of the people are correct. So if I run it again, it has actually run. It's working. Now if you write var good morning equal to function this, and if I write var good evening equal to function this, okay. So this is another way of writing. You can write var good morning like this and var good evening like this. Okay, so and I move this good morning, good evening at the bottom again. And if I run it again, you'll see it still works. If I write, instead of writing function good morning, if I write var good morning function like this, okay, then it still works. And the question comes is that if I take these and I move it to the top, right? So in this case, will it work or will it not work is the question. And in this case, people ask it with both with var, and they also ask it with let. So if I do it with let, then what will happen? Okay, and if I do it with var, then what will happen? So if it was at the bottom, both cases work. Okay, if I run it again, so you see it's still working. Okay, it works. But if I take these and I move it to the top, okay, then you get an error. You get an error that cannot access good morning before initialization. With let, you get this error, cannot access good morning before initialization. If it was var, then what is the error? Okay, so then also you get an error, but it's a different error. Good morning is not a function. You should be able to explain both these errors. The errors are different. If it is var, the error is that good morning is not a function. Okay. And then comes the follow-up question is, if I write console.log type of good morning, what will I get? So can somebody answer here? If it is written var here, okay, then in line number 4, console.log type of good morning, what will be the answer here? So a lot of people are saying undefined, which is correct. It in fact, I'll just comment these out, and you get good morning type of. If it is let, then what will be the output of line number 4? If it is let instead of var, okay, in that case, what will be the value of console.log here? What do you think? With let, it would not be undefined, it will be something else. It will not be undefined. If it var, then it is undefined. If it is let, what do you think will come? So you will get an error. It will say cannot access good morning before initialization if you try to do type of again with let. You can't do type of a variable which has not yet been declared in case of let. You can do it with var because hoisting happens, but it is undefined. Okay. So again, it is about hoisting and about difference between let and var. That will start coming. So you have to be able to, essentially people should be able to give the idea about the error. I mean, exactly नाम नहीं पूछेगा कोई error का कि यही स्ट्रिंग मेरे को दिमाग से रट के बता दो, बट यू शुड बी एबल टू टेल कि हाँ देयर विल बी एन एरर, रेफरेंस एरर विल कम. ओके, what will be the exact message of the error? Nobody is interested in that kind of ratification level, but you should be able to say with let there will be an error, with var there will be no error, it will just say undefined. Okay, so that's about the hosting part, and there are a lot of good resources on hosting. Okay, so like somebody mentioned, probably there's a Namaste JavaScript series on YouTube, so that's there. I had made some videos on hosting long back as well, so तब दुनिया इतनी interested नहीं होती थी JavaScript में ये deep वाले questions समझने में 4-5 years back, but on Coding Bros YouTube channel also there is videos on hosting as well. So in fact there is a series on शायद से ये है yeah, so there is this playlist, by the way, advanced JavaScript stuff like this, where you can check from. I will just write that down in the chat for you guys. cb.lk slash yt slash jsadv. So लिख देता हूँ यहाँ पे आपको the URL for this, cb.lk slash yt slash jsadv करके है. Many of these topics that I'm talking here, they are all, you can find them out there. There is how ifs work, var, let and const, difference between them is there, pass by pass by value, and difference between those things, like pass by value, pass by reference, ifs, closure scope, call stack explained, set timeout, set interval, how it works, and ES6 promises. So all of that stuff is there, right? So you can find out all of those things there. Now coming to the closures part. So closures are also very important, understanding closures. So closures, how many of you don't know about closures on the chat? Who does not know about closures? Do you want a discussion about that, or would you like to just go and cover closures on your own? This is obviously very important, and I will make one on that, in fact. So a lot of people are there who are saying that they don't know. We can do a definitely discussion on that. Only thing is, like, closure becomes like a bigger topic, and we have a lot of topics to cover. So closures, there should be like a lot of videos on closures already. I think there is a closure video here already in that video series, so you can go and try that out. Oh my god, this is so old. This uses the old ID at Coding Blocks we had. I think this is 2017. Yeah, it is posted in 2017. So the thing is, if you make a very serious video, nobody watches them. You have to make some, masala you have to add. These days you have to do some acting in the video, and you have to make a very trash looking thumbnail. You have to make funny faces. Then only people watch videos. Otherwise it just lies out there and nobody watches them. That's how it works. So I'll probably make a masala one on this as well, because you guys like movies more than studying anyway. So I will do that. But here is the link if you just want to study the serious one. I've written it down in the chat. That's for the closure one. Probably you can go and watch that one. Okay. Coming back to this part, I think this is something that gets asked a lot about the concept of this, because bind, call, apply. So just understanding this is important for SD1 level. SD2 level, you would be having a lot of questions using bind, call, apply. These three things actually help you change the pointer of this. This is kind of like a pointer in JavaScript. We'll get into deep. I'm just going into that, but I'm just talking about it. So for an SD1 level, just understanding this, how it works, that's important. For SD2 level, you will be given questions where bind, call, apply, etc. are used, and then inside that, how the variable this is affected, that also people would be asking. So those things get asked. Okay. So yeah, now if I write simply this thing, if I call print this, then what will get printed? Then if I do something like let an object equal to this, which has got a 10, b 20, and c is basically this print this. Okay, so then if I call obj.c, then what will get printed? Okay, so this is something that very often gets asked. If I call print this here, what will get printed? Right. So the answer to that is that the global object gets printed in case of this, because Node.js runs in global scope. So you would get a global gets printed here. If you run this inside browser, the window will get printed, because Node.js in browser console runs inside the window. Here it is running inside the global object. So you get the global gets printed. If you put print this into a property of obj, and you do obj.c, you call, then this is pointing to obj. So whenever you call object.c like this, if you're calling a function, then inside this function, the pointer of this would be pointing to the object through which you have called it. Okay. Now the interesting thing is, if I do something like this, that let x equal to obj.c, and then if I call x, so what will happen in this case? Can somebody tell me what will happen if I print x, call x here? What will get printed? Looking for answers on the chat for line number 16. What do you think will get printed? Somebody is saying global, somebody is saying error, somebody is saying obj. Another thing, can somebody tell me what will be the value of this? Console.log x equal to print this. Okay. Can somebody tell me if this would be true or false? Line number 17, true or false? How about that? So waiting for the answers on that. Line number 17, true or false? So we're getting both kinds of answers. I seem to see some people are writing true, some people are writing false. Let's check that out. What happens in that case? Sorry. So first of all, here you guys got obviously fooled a little bit. When somebody is asking questions in the interview, make sure whether you remember and you see whether there is a bracket here or whether there is no brackets here. It's very different things. If there is no brackets here, then x is the function, and x can be called. If there is brackets here, then x is undefined, because C is print this function, that function does not return anything. So if you call that function, you get what the function returns. If you don't call that function, then you just get a reference to the function. They are very different things. Are you able to understand the difference? Okay. So you get fooled in interviews with these kind of things a lot. You have to keep your focus on it. You should not slip on things like this. Make sure that you read the line correctly. Some people make this mistake unknowingly, because they forget, they don't notice the bracket or something like that. And then some people don't understand what calling a function and difference from calling a function is. So if you give a wrong answer, somebody might say, okay, what will be the difference if there is the brackets here, not brackets here, just to make sure that it was not a silly mistake and you really did not notice it or something like that. But yeah, it's important. Now, what about now? A lot of people say true, false, this, that, but you did not notice that you will get an error because of this line here, that x will not be able to be executed. How about now? So how about now? What do you think? So somebody is saying true in double equal to and false in triple equal to. We'll come to that as well. So in case of objects, you will never have the situation where double equal to is true and triple equal to is false. That only happens in primitive values. Double equal to and triple equal to, also people ask a lot of questions on that. Okay. So now you will get, obviously, global, this will get printed and this will come out to be true. You're correct about that. Okay. So understanding that this part obviously is again starting to be important. Okay, let's talk about another thing, and I think this is where even more people start getting confused. Is if I have a function d, which is a function, and inside that I call print this. How about now if I go and call, so I'll just comment this part out, and if I just write obj dot comment this out as well. Let's talk about this. You have got function print this obj dot d. If I call, what will get printed now? What do you think? So the d is the function inside which print this is getting called, and if I call obj dot d, what will be getting printed here? D will obviously not get printed. Like printed, either the object will get printed or global this will get printed. Like what is the value of this that will get printed? So let's take a look. Okay, so global this get printed in this case. Acha. If I write this dot c, then what will get printed? And more than that, let's do something like this. Let's print this dot c, then let's print this, and then let's do console.log this dot c equal to print this. Okay, function call nahi hai yahan pe, just keep that in mind. Okay, so now if I call obj.d, okay, and you see with this you can go into a lot of depth and you can keep confusing people to understand whether they really understand the topic or they have just looked at some YouTube video and understood one or two concepts and they don't really understand what's going on. Okay, because with me you can keep on doing this, playing this game, keep on going deeper and deeper. My answers will not be wrong because I really understand what this is. Okay, and that understanding, I personally would say YDKJS would give you the best understanding, more than any YouTube videos, more than what even you would get from this current YouTube video, because I'm just taking one case like that. But YDKJS book definitely gives you a very good understanding. There's another book also, by the way. There is JavaScript, the good parts. It's I think you would get a PDF or something for that book as well. It looks like this, JavaScript, the good parts. So it's a nice book. You should take a look at that as well. It's a little oldish, but that's fine. I think these things like this and all those concepts are not different in old JavaScript and new JavaScript. Okay. So people are saying object and global and true, which is object and global and true, which is gonna be correct. You'd get first the object. Object this dot c we have called. Okay. So what we are seeing is that in the first place, object is getting printed. Second place also object is getting printed. And third place this is true is getting printed, and this is where you get fooled because just a second. So we'll clear this off. Yeah. So yeah, here in this case, people can ask you things like, let x equal to this dot c and then call x. That's also a case. If this dot c is directly called, that's also a case. Okay. So with this dot c, you will get the object getting printed here, this getting printed. So you only have to see whether when the function is called, if there is something before the dot or not. If there is something before the dot, then this inside the function will point to this, and in this case it will be object. So here, just a second. Yeah, so here this is getting printed, the object here, this line. I think there is yeah, let me remove this print this here so that you will look at the output better. Yeah, so the first thing is the object getting printed here. Okay, the second thing is the global object getting printed for this, and then true is getting printed. Okay, so always just keep in mind whenever the function is getting called, whether there is a this call behind this or not. Okay, then obviously there are bind and all stuff as well, so you can bind it to something else. Like you can probably bind it to, say, let o equal to another object where there is k10. So if you do c dot bind k and then this dot c dot bind k and then this dot c if somebody calls, does that make a difference? Sorry, not k, o, right? So we do this dot c dot bind o and this dot c if I call here. So those kind of things again, whether there is some difference. So if I call it, if I bind it and then I call this dot c, whether it will print the o object, whether it will print the obj object, all of these things you have to again understand. Now this thing, I think there is MDN. If you go to Mozilla Developer Network, bind call apply, you would find function.prototype.bind. So how does the bind function work here? So if I do let x equal to this dot c dot bind o and call x, okay, in that case what will happen? You would get o printed here. Okay, because once you bind it, it creates a new function. In this new function, that this points to o object rather than to obj anymore if I call x like this. Okay, can I do something like this? Can I write here that this dot x equal to this dot c dot bind o, and can I call this dot x like this? Will that change anything? Okay, so in that case also this dot k points to o. Now if I call obj dot d and after that if I call obj dot x, okay, so you can keep going very deep into how this binding can get changed around. So as you can see, when I call the function d, it creates a new variable called x inside obj. Okay, and you can put breakpoints on this and keep observing those kind of things as well, right? So what is happening at every stage. Now if this stage, if I run this, as you can see, inside the function, when I call x, it points to this thing, the o object. When I call print this, it prints the global this object. Okay, whether this dot c was equal to print this, right, where this dot c was equal to print this, that comes out to be true. If I call obj.x, now here is where the exceptions start happening. Here before the dot there is obj, but although I'm calling x, it is printing k10. It's not printing the value of obj, it is printing the value of o. Why is that happening? That's happening because I have produced this function using the bind operator. If I've done it using bind operator, then it will always keep binding. It will be bound to object O, right? Because I manually bound it, right? It is not bound because of the dot operator now anymore. It is bound because of the way I had bound it while creating that function. Okay. Then comes the question whether these two things are actually same. Like, console.log, is the obj.x function equal to obj.d function, for example. Okay, not d, print this. Or I've created out of C, right? So obj.c function, is it equal to that or not? This, if I run, it will come out to be false, because when you rebind a function, it's there is a new reference to that function now. It's not the same function anymore. So that will come out to be false. Okay. So okay, things are getting fast now. That's what people are saying. So that's the thing. This is coming towards more into territory of what somebody who has spent 2-3 years working on JavaScript, or a little more than that. You would expect people to ask things like that here. I would not delve too deep into this. I would say what we can do is go to MDN, and here go to MDN function apply, MDN function call. So these 3 pages, definitely go and read them up. It's just better to read them up properly with the examples that are given here. It's much more nicely explained here than I can do in 2 minutes inside the video, because there are other topics that I want to cover as well. So how function prototype bind works, how function prototype apply works, and how function prototype call works. Okay, so all that stuff. This, especially if you are already 2-3 years experience SD2 level JavaScript interviews, if you're trying to give, then these things are more important. So you should definitely go and check these up. Bind, call, and apply are there in the YDKJS books as well, in the this wala segment, but you can check those things out. Cool. Then we come to objects. So because in the interviews, these kind of things will happen. Like, people will basically play with you only. They will just keep on trying to confuse you, and try to understand how deep do you really understand. That's how these kind of JavaScript interviews on these patterns inside JavaScript works. Okay, there are some weird parts of JavaScript, but then people who have worked with it for a long time, they understand it properly, and people just want to understand that whether you know those things or whether you don't know those things. Okay. Now talking about objects. So if I have let obj1 equal to some object with a10 and b20, this way we have. If I do let obj2 equal to object dot create obj1, right? And if I do console.log obj2, what will it print here? If I do console.log obj2.a, what will it print here? If I do obj1.a equal to 44, and then if I do console.log obj2.a, then what will it print here? Okay, this is basically understanding how prototype based object creations work, and do you know that or not. So that's another family of questions that people would be asking you. Okay. People who are saying about session being early, you can come and watch it tomorrow as well. It's gonna be there on YouTube. It's not gonna go away, right? You won't be able to ask live doubts otherwise. But unfortunately, that's how my clock works. In the day also, I'm working on certain things, and this is the time when I get free. Best time to make those videos. You can watch it later on tomorrow as well. The video, it will remain on YouTube definitely. So in the case of the first thing, obviously an empty object will get printed, right? it will not show object2 to have anything. Let me just comment this out, and if I just run this for a second, you see that an empty object gets printed, because object2, it will not show object2 has anything. Okay, if I add something like obj2 dot k equal to 99 like this, and then if I run, then k99 gets printed inside it. Okay, but otherwise it will not show anything inside object k, although it has inherited a and b from object 1. This is object to object inheritance, like you have inheritance in your classes and all. This is object to object inheritance, and here it will show that obj2 dot k, it will show here, but a and b it will not show. obj2 dot a, if I try to print, it will print 10, by the way. Okay, because it can access things inside obj1. The interesting part is, if I change obj1.a to 44, then what is the value of obj2.a? And some people have said 10, some people have said 44. The thing is, it will be 44. It will get changed because if I make changes to data inside obj1, and if a copy of that data does not exist in obj2, it is only accessing via inheritance, it does not have its own copy of it, then it is the same reference. So when I do this kind of a thing, a is not copied to object2. There is only a reference to a within object2. So when I do obj2.a, it is trying to refer it via obj1. But if I do something like obj, right, like the obj2.a plus plus, can somebody tell me what will be the value printed here in line number 12 now? What will be value in line number 12 now after doing the plus plus operator? Small question by Vijay, whether advantage of WebStorm. So I feel like the autocomplete is a little bit better, and I use a lot of JetBrains IDs, like Android Studio and IntelliJ as well. It makes me comfortable. That's why I'm using it. Otherwise, you can use VS Code, no difference. Okay. So again, some people are saying 11, some people are saying 44. Somebody has even said 45, which I don't know how you have come up with 45 as a number, because the plus plus happens before the 44 assignment happens. In any world, answering 45 will not take you anywhere, but yes. So in this case it will be 11, because object2.a gets assigned to object2 again. Again, in my JS ADV this series, I think there is one on prototypes. There should be one, so you can check that out. All of these things are actually covered in my Node.js course on coding blocks, by the way, and I don't prefer, like in my YouTube live sessions, to like promote the course or market it. It's obviously it's a paid course. If anybody's interested, you can go and buy that, and a lot of people do that anyway. But yeah, I mean, there is so somebody is looking for interviews very immediately, probably not recommending for them. But if somebody wants to learn web development, make projects, spend next 4, 6, 7 months learning it, for them I can say, yeah, you can check out the full stack Node.js course as well. This does contain all of these things. So for example, JS1 contains all of the basic stuff in JavaScript, like varlet kind of things, scopes and all of that. Then there is the closures, prototype, those kind of things are covered. And then there is advanced stuff like the ifs, closure scope, let const, all of those things are also covered. Okay, and I think there is and a complete section on concurrency, parallelization, async await, promises, callback hell. Those kind of things are also there. So all of these things are covered in the course. If anybody is enrolled in it, then you can find all of this content in the course itself as well. But like I said, there are a lot of books and a lot of free materials as well, which covers those topics one by one at different places as well. MDN is obviously there, right? Is there any reason to prefer classical ES6 function syntax these days? What do you mean by ES6 ES5 function syntax? I mean, the way to create function is same in both ES5 and ES6. There is nothing different in ES6 from ES5 in how you create functions. No change has been there, right? Okay. So this is about this object and the things that can come, in respect to that here. I think I will, come back to this and talk about the topics a little bit more. I do want to wrap the video as well, and I want to talk about the non-JavaScript parts in Node.js as well that people are going to be asking about. So about the Node.js part. So this is more still about the languages, and a lot of the questions will get asked about the languages itself. Okay, but apart from the languages, what are the things that people are going to be asking? And again, if people are those who are watching the video now or who will watch it later, if anybody wants to help in creating the timestamps for me, if you have watched the entire video, feel free to write down the timestamps in a comment and I would add it in the description. If nobody does that in 2-3 days, then I will do it manually myself. But if anybody wants to help in doing that, what are the timestamps at which different topics were done, feel free to put that down in the comments and I will add those timestamps to the description. Okay. um, Sisan Sahu is saying, missed your question. Can you just type your question again? System design. System design, like, I mean, this context, I don't want to cover system design right now. Right. We can discuss that probably in a design interview session. I can have another live session for that. Let's talk about these things. So, Node.js के बारे में और क्या चीज़ें people would be asking is understanding what is a request, what is a response. Okay, what different headers are used inside headers? Authorization header, how is that used? Content type header, what is that? Accepts header, what does that mean? Okay, HTTP status codes people would be asking you. So my Facebook interview first round had questions on HTTP status codes. Actually, they said that there is a HTTP method to create a user on the the server. What should be the status code for the user having been created? So you have got the 200 series codes. Those are for okay, created, done, these kind of things. 300 series codes are for redirection. 400 series codes are for errors. Client errors, client or transport errors, where the server has no mistake. 500 series are for server errors, where the request was correct but the server could not process that request. So these are all the different types of error codes. So 2, 3, 4 and 5 series of error codes, what do they mean? You can look that up. Wikipedia, HTTP status codes is there, and understanding all of these. So one is basically informational response, which is for upgrading from HTTP to HTTP2 or continue and those kind of things. Not a lot of people ask about these things. 200 is for success. So general response is 200. Okay, when you send a response to a GET request, if a resource has been created on the server, there is 201. If some request has been accepted, like you want to delete some data on the server, and server says okay, I've done it. Okay, so then it's 202. Then the other ones, 203 to 226, these are not so much very used, but these three you should definitely know when and which one to use. 300 is for redirection. 301 is permanently moved, so your search engines will index the new page. 300 2 is temporarily moved, so your search engines don't index the new page necessarily, but temporarily it is going to redirect. And there are other ones, 303 to 8, not so very important, but I think there is caching, there is use. 304 is for cached requests. So if there is a cache on the server and you get cached response, so you get a 304 in that case. So I think 300 0 to 5, 0 to 4, you should probably cover, understand which response to be done. Not at a theoretical level only, just at rectifying this Wikipedia page is not the thing. You will have to, when you're creating a server, you should know how to set the status code and in which case you have to send which response. They might show you some example code base and they might tell you that can you fix the status codes inside this code base. This kind of questions I've seen being asked, and you might have to do response.status. You'll have to fix correctly in the different controllers for that. So practically it might get asked, not necessarily like this, just theoretically knowing which status codes for what. Okay. Writing your own server in Node.js, nobody can do that better than what Express and Nest has probably done. So performance-wise, there is something called Fastify. People use that a bit, but the scale of that is probably just 2 or 3x better than Express. So don't worry about, like, if you want to learn Node.js in depth, and for doing that you create your own server. That's something that's possible. But to make a new project, you say that okay, Express is not good, I will write my own server. You will probably spend 2-3 years writing that server, and it will still not be as good as Express. So those are very different things. Writing your own framework is a different goal, and because scale will not be handled, so I will using a different server. Those are different goals. Anyway, continuing here, 400 series errors. So these also you have to know very well. 400 generic bad request. 401 is unauthorized. Okay. Then there is 403. So these are the difference between unauthorized and forbidden is that in 401 it means that you have not sent the auth token or the password. So you are not allowed to see this particular resource. Okay. 403 is forbidden, which means that you have provided your identification, but your role or your user is not allowed to see this particular resource. Okay. So there are two different things. Like if you're not signed in, you get a 401. If you're signed in, but you're trying to access things that you are not allowed to, you get a forbidden. Okay. 402 is not really used anymore these days, but it is used in some APIs where you hit the hit a paywall related stuff. So Google Developer API uses this particular exceeded daily limit on request, and also these kind of things are there. Rest are kind of not really important. 405 probably you might have to understand a little bit, but 400 to 404. 404 is obviously very famous for not found resources that does not exist. So understanding 400 to 404 is kind of important. And then comes the 500. So 500 was server side errors where the request was correct, but the server could not process it. So whether it's a gateway timeout is a very famous thing. Service unavailable, bad gateway. So again, 500 to 504, these are kind of important to know. There are some unofficial codes. These are all not really important, but these HTTP codes are kind of important. People would ask you questions about these things in an interview as well. Okay. Very nice. I think who has written this? Garab has written this, that 401 is we don't know who you are, and 403 is we know who you are, but you can't do this. That's definitely correct, right? So that's very important. Okay. Cool. So now apart from that, what other things would be coming in interview questions? Again, let me try to wrap the things up a little bit. I don't want to stretch this too long. So yeah. So again, talking about a little bit SD, 2-3 kind of level things. So how ALB, ELB work. Edge load balancer, application load balancer. Edge load balancer, the users when they hit a request, initially they hit a edge load balancer. So you might be using a CDN like Cloudflare, sorry, CDN, content delivery network like Cloudflare or CloudFront. Do you have any experience with that? People might ask you questions about that. How to set E-tag and caches. Understanding how caching works, understanding how ELB works, understanding how application load balancers work. So for example, at coding blocks, we have got this request where you go to ID and you submit a request. Okay, so you hit an API, the API hits something called we call it taskmaster, and it then hits a pool of lot of workers we have. So if you make a request, okay, this is my C++ code, run it. So it hits the API. API has a queue with the taskmaster. So basically it does not go in this mode. So whenever the API gets a new request, it puts it on the queue. The taskmaster takes it and sees whatever free worker is available. It runs your code inside that worker, and when the code has been run on a worker, it puts it back inside the success queue. So how do queues work? So why are queues important? How do queues work? So there is RabbitMQ, Kafka. People will not ask you questions about how to write code like deep into Kafka or RabbitMQ, but whether or not you understand why queues are used, what is the purpose of a queue, right? Where queue should be used, where queue should not be used. So those kind of things. For that, people ask these kind of questions. For example, I was recently hiring someone at a SD 3 kind of level, and I used to give them a a general use case that we have to create a review system. So for example, at Zomato we had it, at Target also we use something like that. Is products are getting reviewed. Okay, so you buy from a restaurant, you can review their food. You buy something at Target, it's a shop like Amazon, you can review that. So this review system, so let's say that rest of the system exists, users are there, products are there, all of that. This review system, you have to create one as a microservice, as a separate service. How would you go about creating that? So when users send a review, it has to be also moderated. Like if they have words like, say, say porn, fuck, sex, bullshit, these kind of words are there, so they have to remove from the review. If the review contains photos which are not about the product, they have to be removed. So there might be a manual review stage, there might be a automated review stage as well. So how do you design that kind of a system? So people, I would expect somebody to answer that. Okay, somebody makes a review, there is a review API. Review API puts the review on the queue. If it has photos, it goes to the manual moderation queue. If it has does not have photos, it goes to the automatic moderation queue. The moderation queue moderates that review, and then it puts it onto the the review database. Once it goes to review database, then there is some cron triggered which caches the reviews, because every time you're making a request to a product, you don't fetch fresh reviews are not fetched for you. The top 10 reviews for that product are cached for you, right? If you go to Amazon or some page like that, if you go and review a product, you'll see that your review does not come up immediately, it will come up a little later. And Zomato as well, if you review something, you won't see that review immediately, a little later, 2-3 minutes later it will come up. So it has to be cached, and from that cache it will be fetched. So to completely understand this kind of a system, can you tell where the queue would be, where the load balancer would be, where the service worker would be, where the database would be? Explaining that these kind of things are important if you are SD 2-3 level interviews you're giving. SD 1 level, people are probably not going to be asking so much about these things. They'll be focusing more on your JavaScript knowledge. Got it? So um, then obviously one more thing you should definitely cover is containerization. So Docker and Docker. If you are at SD 2 level, if you are at SD 3 level as well, it is kind of these days useful if you also cover Kubernetes. K8s it's called, or Kubernetes. Okay, so Kubernetes knowledge would also help containerization and deploying projects using auto scaling technology. So Kubernetes would be kind of helpful. Little bit of understanding of how maybe AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud works can also be helpful, because little bit of DevOps and all related work you need to do. Okay. SD2 level, you would also need to understand a little bit about testing. So by testing, you should have idea about something like, say, Mocha, Chai. There are a lot of assertion libraries. There is Jest for front end testing, Mocha, Chai. So how unit tests are written, how you write tests, and you might get like a take home project, like make an API for social media, Twitter clone, make an API. That kind of a take home project you might get at an SD2 level interviews for Node.js, right? So when you make the project, it should have tests written, tests for the DB layer, tests for the API layer, tests for the controller layer. So how do you write tests? That is also something that people would be interested in seeing. So those kind of things also get asked in interviews. Probably not so much in the SD1 level kind of interviews. So hope that gives you an idea. Okay, this is a question here. Does Target use Node.js? So Target primarily a backend is made on Java, Micronaut and Spring and these kind of things. Node.js is used in a few projects here and there, but backend interviews, for example, at Target focus more on Java knowledge, because majority of the backend team uses Java, right? Is it okay to use Express for 1 million users? That's perfectly fine. There are a lot of companies who are like, people even say Ruby on Rails is very slow, but Shopify has 30-40 million users, and Shopify is using Ruby on Rails. So everything scales. If Ruby on Rails scales there, the Express definitely scales there. I think 10 million kind of users Doubtnut is about to reach, and Doubtnut uses Node.js in their backend, right? So perfectly scales. There's no problem with 1 million plus users in Node.js. No issues in that. You have to scale into microservices and create horizontal load balancers, those kind of things, and they are common whatever language you use. It does not come down to the problem of your what language you have used. That is usually not a problem. Okay. Is GraphQL recommended after learning REST APIs? So if you are really well versed with REST APIs, you understand the entire REST concept, you understand the HTTP status codes and everything, then I would say yes, you can delve a little bit into that GraphQL as well. Not as extremely essential. Okay. If you're looking at a particular startup where GraphQL is used a lot, you can do that. But GraphQL is one of those technologies which, at an interview level, if you don't know, so even if the company uses GraphQL, they will not eliminate you because you don't know GraphQL, because it is something that on the job you can learn. It's not a problem. Okay. So I think we have done 1.5 hours already. Like I mentioned in the last live stream as well, I don't want to make it too long because people would come back and look at this video. If it's too long, people are not able to do that. So let us leave it here. Maybe we can do an episode 2 of this and cover more topics, because a lot of topics are left, I know. So we'll do that. I do focus more on the SD1 and the beginner part and the JavaScript part more, on these topics less, because most of the audience, at least at Coding Blocks, as you guys know, it's more of third year, fourth year college people rather than 1 or 2 years experienced people. So the focus was more on SD1, and on the JavaScript part I did more on that. So fundamental knowledge of JavaScript is 90% of your interview is gonna be that. If that is clear, and your deployment and architecture and HTTP codes and all of these things, this is a little weak, but your JS concept is really really solid. Like all these questions I was asking, or something like you have covered that Akshay Saini YouTube series like Namaste JavaScript or MD, and all of these pages you have gone and read, or YDK JS book you have covered, something like that you have done, and your JS concepts are really really strong. In that case, you will definitely get selected. You will not get eliminated because a little bit of load balancing and Docker and these concepts you did not know, because these things people, when they work in a company in production, they anyway get to learn. But if your JS concepts are weak, it tells people that you just want to write code and make apps without understanding what you're writing. That gives a bad signal. So language fundamentals are generally the most important thing and the most crucial thing, and the deal breaker or the deal maker during an interview. So focus on that, at least for the majority of the audience who watches Coding Blogs YouTube channel. For them, focus on the JavaScript fundamentals. That is the most important thing. Okay. Whatever you prefer, whether you prefer YouTube series, there's another guy called Fun Function, by the way. He does not make new YouTube videos. He has been taking a break from last year, but Fun Function, there is a YouTube channel, really really great for JavaScript fundamentals. There is Wes Boss, I'm writing it down in the chat as well. So Wes Boss has got a course on JavaScript fundamentals as well, right? So I'll open these things up on the screen as well, right? So let's quickly check that out. Right. So what I was talking about, yeah. So Wes Boss has a JavaScript course. This is something that you can take a look at, right? There is a blog by Duality. It's like Duality, pronounced with two. It's a very nice set of blogs for JavaScript. Okay. It's not very well structured because he writes different topics at different times, but each article is the most in-depth article on that topic I have ever seen. Alex Roshmeyer, it's probably the most fantastic JavaScript article I have seen. For React people, Dan Abramov you can follow. Right, Overreacted, there is a blog by Dan Abramov on React.js. There is Kent C. Dodds, might be pretty costly for Indian people, I know, right? So paid course, but they have free courses as well. By Kent C. Dodds is there. Obviously, there is the full stack web development Node.js course at Coding Blocks as well if you are interested. But there is a lot of free content on our YouTube channel as well on Node.js. Right, but we want to do a proper course kind of thing with teaching assistants and everything. So there is the full stack Node.js course that I have created on Coding Blocks channel. Right. We have a web development bootcamp also happening. So where if you get the job offer at the end of it, then your complete fee becomes zero as well. So you can check that out as well. And there's a banner at the top, as you can see that. Okay. What else? So I think I think people said about Namaste JavaScript. So probably good series Akshay Saini has made. I haven't watched. I think I have watched just one video in it, but it was really nice. I think there was an interview kind of a session, so that also you can check that out. Okay. Um, and apart from that, like what I personally do, I don't use any of these resources. What I do is I just use MDN as a reference. But then if you're a little bit experienced, then wherever you get stuck, you can go to MDN, because it's kind of like the Bible for web developers, because it's the most authentic documentation for anything related to JavaScript you will get on MDN. And it's the best place for reference, which is I personally feel. So you can obviously refer to MDN for learning things as well. Okay, there are like proper tutorials as well, like free complete tutorials, CSS JavaScript tutorials are there. First steps, building blocks, getting started with JS. This is a very nice place, the JavaScript tutorials one. I would recommend this very highly as well. Okay, so these are all the things that you can do to cover all the topics that you need for the interviews. I think that would be it. If there are further questions, please write them down in the comment section. If there are any questions, more questions, I would love to take them up. If you would like to join our Discord server, we have a Discord server. So I will just write down the link here. I'll show it here. So we have got this Discord server, cb.lk/discord. Okay. I think, is the Discord open? Yeah, it's open here with me. So we have got like a Node.js channel in our Discord server, and people discuss a lot of Node.js related stuff here. So you can come on board, discuss that. Most of Coding Blocks mentors, even former mentors, people who are not on the Coding Blocks team anymore, they're also part of the Discord channel, or the TAs are there. A lot of people are online, and we have a bunch of things. We have a project showcase where they make projects, they showcase that to each other, and you can, if you write your own blog articles on any technological things, people have a place to showcase those blog articles to each other. So it's like a community for developers who like Android, Node.js, React, Django, all that stuff. So you can definitely come and join, and people who participate in Boss and Coding Blocks open source projects, they all are available here, and you can talk to them. Cool. And Coding Blocks has its own open source projects as well, so we talk about those things. The Coding Blocks entire backend is made in Node.js. So all those projects and all are also there. Cool. So I think I'll write down the link in the chat box as well. cb.lk/discord. Okay. If the link is available on the chat, cb.lk/discord. It's a very simple link. Most of our links are simple because we have a URL shortener, cb.lk. That is also written in Node.js, by the way. I think I will make a session on how to create a URL shortener and deploy that. I was thinking of doing that. Maybe next month I will do that. So cb.lk/discord is the link to join our Discord channel. Okay. And anything related to Node.js, there's a Node.js channel to discuss that. If you have projects, please showcase them on the project showcase, and people will comment on how good it is and all that stuff. Cool. So I think that would be it. Let's catch up sometime else, another session on some other topic. Any sessions that you feel like you want me to cover, feel free to comment them on the chat or in the comments. And if that's possible, if that's something that I know, I would love to take those up. So good night. It's been quite late. I myself haven't had my dinner as well, so I will go and have that. Very late for me already. So cool. Good night, guys, and have a nice day. Take care.